fraud and abuse in orange, and then preparing for the unexpected, looking at insurance and other protections in yellow. And finally, we're just going to touch on the future and maybe think about saving for life after work in pink. Now, we're going to cover a lot of different things. Now, some of the things you may already know, and some of the things will be completely new to you. So please take away whatever works for you. The good news is there is no exam at the end. However, if you can take positive steps in any of these topics over the next sort of few weeks, next few years, you'll be growing in confidence, and that will be fantastic. Now, there's a lot of slides on some of these slides, a lot of information on some of these slides, and that is totally deliberate. It's so you can revisit them in your own time. So don't worry if you can't read them all now or your screen is too small. Hopefully you'll be able to look through them all at a later date. But let's start with some background. If we go on to the next slide, please. So introduction, if you can put all the items actually onto the page, is probably easier, and then everyone can read it. So looking after your financial well-being is really important, but it's no secret that in the UK, we're not very good at managing our money. Now, one of the most commonly shared statistics is that 4 in 10 working age people have less than £100 in savings. So it's actually very common not to be on top of your money. Now, of course, savings is just one way to measure how we're getting on with our money, but it's an interesting figure. It says a lot about how we feel when it comes to budgeting, saving, and managing our debt. So we're running this session because we want to help you manage your money and feel more financially secure. So if you jump onto the next slide, please. And put out all the items would be great, thank you. So this is the importance of money. Now, there appears to be a sort of real stigma around talking about money in the UK. At times, it feels like we'd rather talk about anything else except what's going on in our bank accounts. And that's strange because money is such a fundamental part of everything that we do. It doesn't matter what country we're in or what language we're speaking. We use money for everything, whether it's for our basic needs, to planning for the future, to the luxuries in life. Let's go on to the next slide, please. This is how we make decisions. So on the face of things, you could be mistaken for thinking that managing your money is quite simple. After all, it's just maths. And everybody loves maths, although I won't do a poll saying who loves maths, so you're okay. But one of the biggest misconceptions about money is that because it's something we can count, then it must be possible to manage it perfectly. Now, the reality is that's probably not the case, because we don't tend to make decisions rationally, but instead we base them on how we're feeling or what feels important to us. Think of managing money a bit like sort of dieting. You know, we all know what we should and shouldn't eat, and maths for healthy eating is simple. To gain weight, you eat more calories. To stay the same, you eat the same. And to lose weight, you eat less. But anyone who's tried dieting, including me, will tell you it's not as simple as that, because you're trying to change fundamental habits and behaviors that are hardwired to your brain. So it's not going to be easy. You've been warned. Next slide, please. So if we link that back to well-being, if financial well-being is more than just money and maths, what is it? Well, financial well-being is about having the knowledge, the skills, and the confidence to change your behavior around money in ways that work for you. It's not about how much money you have, but it's about being smart with what you do have and how to make it work best for you. So it's important that we look after our financial well-being because our spending can affect more than our bank balance. Research shows that if you're struggling with money, it can also affect your mental health. And this can also impact your physical health and your social well-being. So it can become a difficult cycle, which makes us harder to thrive in our personal lives. Go to the next slide, please. So this is a new slide that I just have thrown in because I thought it was quite interesting. It's called the 7 money personality types. Because when it comes to looking at our financial health, one thing that most people fail to consider is their money personality types, or their approach and emotional responses to money. So we each have our own beliefs and emotions about money, and they're mostly shaped by our individual life experiences. So this might be from childhood or from your current situations. So these 7 traits were identified by Ken Honda, and typically we might fall into a number of categories and not just one. But I certainly know I can think of many people that would fall into these different buckets. So I'll pause for a few seconds as you start putting your friends and family members into these different buckets. And it's a surprisingly easy game. So maybe you're a compulsive saver. Maybe you're a compulsive spender. Maybe you're a compulsive money maker. Maybe you're indifferent to money. Maybe you're a saver splurger, which sounds exciting. Maybe you're a gambler, or maybe you're a money warrior. So maybe you recognize yourself in one or a few of these. And what could you do with that information now? Maybe it's something to think about. Anyway, I thought you'd find that one interesting. So if we go up to the next slide, let's get into the exciting bit. So hold on to your seats. We're going to do budgeting and planning. Now, this is probably the section my family should join in, and it's certainly the section, if we've got any finance students on this call, they should be paying attention now, because they're usually the worst offenders. No comment. So if we go to the next poll, so this is quite a simple one. It's quite a short one. It says, do you have a budget right now? And don't worry if you don't. And if you don't know what one is, that's okay as well. We'll try and make it a bit clearer in a minute. We'll see how we're getting on with that. And don't worry if you haven't been able to access it. There you go. So we've got nearly 2/3 don't have a budget, and 1/3, 35%, does have a budget. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a way to go, and maybe we can improve the people who've already got a budget. So thank you very much. Right, and then so if we go to the next slide. So this is looking at, and see if we can put in all the items, that'd be great. What is a budget? So basically, it's an estimate of your money coming in versus your money going out over a set period of time. So let's try and bring this to life, and hopefully you can do this at home later, even if you've got one. So you're going to need 3 columns on the page, and hopefully if you can see the slide, you can see the 3 columns that I put in there. The first slide is, what money do you have coming in? The second slide is, what money do you, or what money has to go out? There's an important distinction. And then the third one is, what money is going out but maybe doesn't need to. So I'm going to read you the examples I put in here, and obviously it'll be different for everyone. So the money coming in, so you might be getting money in from a student loan. You may have a job at any part during the year. You may have a grant coming in. You may have a bursary. You may have savings that you've used or you've tried to gather before joining university or whilst at university. You may have a side hustle, and we'll touch on that later, but that's basically other income streams that you've got coming in. And you may even have friends and family who might be helping you out as well. So that's all your income, that's all the money coming in on one side. And then in the middle, you've got the going out. So this is the key bits that you have to spend. So I put a few here that you might have to have as well. Food is a pretty obvious one. Rent, you may or may not be paying rent, and the same with gas and electricity. But if you need to pay it, then it needs to go on the list. Study books might be an important one. Course fees, I suppose that will depend where you are in the country and what course you're on and for how long. You may already have some loan repayments that go out each month. You may also have insurance payments and maybe savings payments that you're sending out of your account. So that's what you need to take out. And then there's the third one, which is much more interesting. It says, does it really need to go out? So I put in a few things that would probably appear on mine, but it's certainly worth reflecting on yours and seeing what you've got. Now, I counted about 10 different TV subscriptions, I think, that people could have. I'm not going to tell you how many I've got because it might be too embarrassing, but we've got some there. You've got Netflix, you've got Amazon, Sky, BT, BritBox, Apple TV. The question is, do you need all of them? Can you watch 10 at the same time? Or can you be a bit smarter with it? Can you share it? For example, my neighbour's got Sky Sports and I've got BT Sports, so we swap houses depending on what game's on. So there may be opportunities there. And say if you don't need it, try and cut it out. Gym membership, if that ever appears on my list, I'm wasting my money. Now, for some of you, a gym might be really important, in which case it may go in the middle column. But if it's appearing on mine, it definitely needs to come out. You may have subscriptions to magazines that you don't read anymore. You may have the latest trainers that you may wish to get. New gadgets is an interesting one. So you might have the iPhone 14, but do you need to spend £1,000 as soon as the iPhone 15 comes out? Eating and drinking obviously will vary again. When I was at university, I had a fair few takeaways that I probably shouldn't have done. And study books is an interesting one. So I spent quite a lot of study books when I was at university, but with hindsight, we probably only used like one course book, and the rest you didn't use at all. So it was a bit of a waste of time. So you may be able to share books, you may be able to get them from the library, you may be able to get the materials online exclusively. So there's a number of different things that you could potentially do. But as I say, review your own list. Start with your own direct debits and go through your bank account and see what you're spending your money on. And then with the budget, the difference between what's going in and what's going out is the amount that you've got left over. Now that might be a surplus, so you might have money left over at the end of the month, or you may be a deficit where you've got less money at the end of the month. So it's just something to be aware of. Now your budget will vary by month. So you may need to do a couple of budgets. If you think about it, you'll probably have a normal month where you see most of your sort of normal items, but you're probably going to have a number of potentially big one-off items that will come in at different points. So for example, Christmas, you may be doing very well budgeting up to Christmas, but if you hadn't allowed for a bit of slack there, you may struggle for all the payments you may wish to make. Holidays, for example, trips, events or concerts. The one that always catches me out is car insurance. It comes out every August, but I seem to forget about it, and I get a nasty whack in August. You may also have sort of yearly memberships that come out. So keep an eye on those because you don't want to miss those. And it may be different between being in term and outside of term time. You may spend less money in term time. You may even spend more, depending, on what you get up to in the summer, for example. But when you see big spends coming in or out, are you managing them? So for example, your student loan may come in just 1 month. But if you spend it all in that month, you may struggle for the other months. So can you split it up so your student loan goes the full distance, and the same with your grant and your bursaries? Can you cover the big costs that are coming? So basically, all this is trying to do is to help you plan ahead so you don't get any nasty surprises. So remember your 3 columns. Next slide, please. So this again is looking at the budgeting. So we've established that a budget is the first step to understanding your day-to-day, week-to-week, or month-to-month financial position. Now, it doesn't always appear glamorous, just ask the accountants, but it's important. So once you've listed your income and mapped your spending, you'll have a much clearer idea of where your money is, how much money you've got, and where it's going, and you'll be able to plan ahead, which is really important. Now, there's various ways you can do budgeting. You can either do it on a sheet of paper like we've kind of done here. You can do it in a notebook or a spreadsheet. We've also included some free budgeting apps that you may wish to have a go at. And there's a variety of different tools that will sort of help you to make the most out of your budgeting and make it as clear and as obvious as possible. So we go on to the next slide, please. Now, this is probably my favorite slide. So anyone who's half fallen asleep with budgeting, certainly wake up now. Now, some of you will be experts here. So this is savvy spending. So budgeting doesn't always mean cutting back. There's plenty of ways to cut back on spending while keeping your quality of life the same, or even making money while you're spending. So if you have a quick look down this list, if you're able to. So the first one on there is online shopping. So there are plenty of online shopping sites that give you cash back for spending, like Quidco. The advice I give to my wife, and I've got to be careful that she's not listening, is before she buys anything online, is to search for a discount code for that particular shop before she hits the purchase button. So there's frequently a live code that will give you free delivery or 5% off or 10% off. So it's certainly worth having a 30-second search. If it's something like John Lewis, it's usually something like John Lewis 10. So some of you may do that, but it's amazing how much you can save over a period of time. The next one is high street shopping tricks. Now, be aware that the high street wants your money. So have a think when you're walking up and down the high street. Is it really for sale? Do you really need it? Are you getting sucked in by the smell of donuts and burgers? This is one I'm guilty of. That's why I put it in there. Can you fight it, or at least know the games they're playing with you when you go there? Can you use your student card? The next one is gas and electricity. Now, I doubt anyone here, including myself, is on the cheapest gas and electric tariffs, probably because they're too complicated. And if you do manage to work it out, try and tell me. But certainly review it annually. And, as we said on the last slide, go through all your other ones that, maybe looking at. You probably can't do much with gas and water and council, but you may, if you're living by yourself, be able to get 25% off. So there's things you can do out there. The other one is review your direct debits. So we've covered that kind of in the last slide, that famous gym membership and how many TV subscriptions you want. My favorite one right at the bottom there is haggling. So you can haggle for more things than you imagine. Now, obviously, you have to pick your moment. I'm not sure if you can go into restaurants and start bargaining for a burger, but potentially you can. I don't think I've ever tried. But certainly things like mobile phones, broadband, insurance, cars. It's amazing what you can sort of get away with. My car insurance came out in August, and it was far much higher than last time. So we just called them up and said, my insurance has gone up, and they took off £98 for one phone call. So it's worth giving it a go, and you can always threaten to leave if you want to and see if you can get a better deal. People like Sky and BT are kind of expecting you to try and leave to get a better deal, so don't miss out on any of those. So if you go to the next slide, please. So this is called Putting Money Away, and it's looking at savings and investments. And my family should probably join this one too. But if we go to the next one, which is poll number 3, now this is a good one. If you get some money, what would you normally do with it? So there's a couple of options there. You can either Hopefully you can see it on the screen there. You can either spend it. You could say, I've got loads of bills to pay, so I won't be getting any treats. You could say, I check my bills, and then I spend whatever's left over. Another one could be you check your bills and then you save whatever's left over, or that you could put it straight into a rainy day fund. So we'll see how we get on with that. And say, don't worry if you haven't got access to it or you can't make it work. Have a think about what you would say. So what have we got here? So we're paying our bills and then we're spending what's left over. That's pretty good. The highest one is paying our bills and saving. This is excellent. So that's over a third of people doing that, and over 22% are saving for a rainy day. So that's brilliant news. So well done. So we'll look into saving. So if we go to the next slide, please. So this is the psychology of saving. So anyone doing psychology might want to do this as a dissertation topic because it'll be a fascinating one. So assuming you've got money left over at the end of the month, no matter how little or large, actually saving it is a game of the mind. Now, most people prefer instant gratification, even if by waiting, they could benefit more in the future. So that means it's difficult for us to put money away. But here's some tips that may help you. So I would say kind of make sure that you know what and why you're saving. Having a goal or vision will help you prioritize. Now, this could be your own place, a car, a concert, reducing your debt, or just peace of mind. But if you can visualize that'll help you and keep you focused. Try and build in habits that after a while just become second nature. For example, moving money into a savings account. The way we call it is out of sight, out of mind, I think is the best way to describe it. And if you do that every month, you can build it into your budget because you know it's always going to come out. But don't forget to reward yourself occasionally. It'll help you stay focused. But remember that creating a savings habit takes time, especially if you've never done it before. You're changing behaviors that are wired in and need to be rewired. So you may not be able to save straight away, and you may only be able to do little bits, but just keep thinking about it. And as you say, go through time, hopefully you can build up a fund. So if we go to the next slide, please. So the first goal here is to have an emergency pot of, say, 3 months of your outgoings. You'll see we split it by saving for emergencies, saving for short-term goals, and saving for long-term goals. And as I said, if you can read through the detail when you're able to see it, that would be great. So the first thing is to aim for that rainy day fund. So this will give you a bit more financial security should anything happen. It buys you time and generally makes you feel a bit more comfortable. After that, you can start looking at your short-term and long-term goals and how you will save for them. Now, in the future, if you're saving for the longer term, you might consider investing, and you might have friends, or you might try investing for lots of different things. And this can take many forms. It could be shares, pensions, all sorts of exciting things. But remember that investments can go up as well as down, and you shouldn't invest anything you can't afford to lose. And if you need to seek professional advice, make sure you do. Now, it can be tricky to consider whether you should start to save or pay down debt, and this is a frequent question that comes up. Now, you should certainly try and have an emergency fund, but if you have expensive debt, you'll probably want to reduce that when you can. For example, I've got a sofa loan, and that's at 0%, but I've also got a credit card that would be charging me 30% in sort of interest and fees. So I think you just have to look at your situation and see where you can make the biggest difference. So, for example, there's no point in me paying off my 0% sofa loan at this point when I'm getting charged 30%. But as I say, it's just worth looking through your finances to look at that. So if we go to the next slide, please. So we're going to look a bit more about debt and fraud. So the poll, I think, is coming up, reflects that on poll number 4. Does money cause you stress? So if we try that poll now, so you've got always, sometimes, and never. I can personally say it certainly caused me stress, but I find that it's probably at different times in different years of my life. So it's a fluid thing. It's not something that moves about quite a bit. So does managing your money cause you stress? So 90% say sometimes. So I probably include myself in that as well. So it's something to keep an eye on, because as I say, it'll be things that'll sort of come in and out of your life. So it's just important to be wary of it. So if we go to the next slide, please, which is what to do if you're worrying. So 1 in 6 people are struggling with debt, and that's 1 in 6 that admit to it. So it's probably a heck of a lot higher than that. But only 1 of those 6 people who are struggling actually takes debt advice or support. Now, not all debt is bad, and I say many of us have it. You may have a mortgage, you may have a car. We've already covered my famous sofa. But when you're experiencing some of the signs on this slide, on the sort of right-hand side, that suggests that maybe the level of debt that you have is potentially impacting your health, and you should try to look at taking action. So things like continually spending more than you earn, missing payments, maxing out your credit cards. These are maybe flags that are to point you to action. So if we look at the next slide, please, which is a continuation of what to do if you're worrying. Now, there's lots and lots of support available from charities and support organizations that you can contact if you need to. Now, we've listed a few here, but use search engines to find something that's right for your specific circumstances, and you won't believe the amount of support groups and how specific they are. So certainly find something that works for you if you need to. It's a bit like visiting a doctor, I suppose. The sooner you can take action and try and tackle the issues, the better. The worst you can do is stick your head in the sand. So if you please reach out to the appropriate people, and all universities will have support and advice experts that you can go and speak to for free. So don't forget those, because they're there specifically for you. And this includes financial abuse as well. So, if you're being taken advantage of by partners or family members or organizations, again, Google specific circumstances, because there will be a help group. There is so much that's free and that's ready to help you. I can't stress that enough. And even if you're currently in a good place, remember we said 1 in 6, and possibly a heck of a lot more, have issues. So certainly look out for your friends and family too. If we go on to the next slide, please. Now, I've just put this slide in because I thought it was quite important. It's scams and tricks. So I've thrown in a few things that you probably should be sort of wary of. The first one is Black Friday, everyone's favorite and worst thing, the big sales events each year. Now, if you genuinely need something that obviously you've budgeted for, because you've already done your budget for it, and you can get it cheaper in a sale, then fantastic, that's brilliant. However, just because it's in a sale doesn't mean you have to buy it. For example, shoes. You don't say, because I've got money in my account and it's on sale, I should. Obviously, notwithstanding the rewards that we were talking about, rewarding yourself, but just make sure you keep a handle on it. And care, is it actually a sale? You hear all these stories of the shops manipulating the price. They put the price up 20% the day before, and they put it down 10% for the sale. So it has come down 10%, but you're still losing out. So make sure you do your research, and especially if you're buying big products. So let's have a quick look around the grid. We won't go into detail. We've covered Black Friday. We've covered do your research. Buying followers, obviously, being an influencer is quite a big thing now, but don't be under any illusions. People can buy followers. So just because they're telling you to buy it doesn't mean you have to. We're seeing a lot more fake online stores. So, can you confirm that the company actually exists? Similar fashion, you get fake accounts. You get phone scams. I get messaged all the time about the tax I haven't paid from HMRC. You get romance scams. If you go to the BBC website, it will tell you about all the people who have had their heart broken and lost lots of money. There's loan scams. There's tech scams. There's bargain goods, which are sometimes they're not bargains and sometimes they're not even goods at all. So be careful of that. Identity theft is a big one nowadays. Everyone's trying to get your email and your bank details. And high street tricks, again, some that we covered. There was one I was thinking about the other day was the escalators in a shop. It always made me wonder that when you go on a big sort of department store, you have to go up the escalators, and you usually have to keep walking across the floor to keep going up the escalator. And then when you get to the top, you have to walk all the way down the stairs. And again, these are just tricks. These are just things to make you look at everything and to entice you up, and then you can sort yourself out on the way down. So remember, companies and people will pay lots of money and do lots of strange and sometimes illegal things to get hold of your money. So just keep a lookout for the scams and tricks. We go to the next slide, please. So this one is insurance and protection and other protection. Now, sometimes unexpected things can happen, and they're not always good things. So we thought we'd have a bit of a session on insurance and other protection. But firstly, we'll do poll 5 on the next slide, please. So this question is, have you ever asked for help in managing your finances? So it's a yes and no. But as I said before, don't be afraid to ask for help. And there can be many reasons you're asking for help. It could be because you're struggling at a certain point in your life. It could be because you want specific financial advice, and maybe go and visit your bank. NatWest does financial reviews that you can go in and speak to an expert. Or it could be because you're just trying to learn more about money, which is always an interesting thing to do. You can do that yourself or with other people. So let's see where you've come up with that one. So again, 2/3 have said you've never asked for help with money. And I say, hopefully that's because you haven't needed to. But I say, I would just reiterate, if you ever do need to, there's so many people that can help you. Right, if we go on to the next slide. So I thought I'd better throw this one in. This is insurance and other protection. So I put in 4 questions. Now, insurance is a bit of a weird one because it's painful to pay for it until you actually need it. So you'll keep seeing insurance going out of your account and you're saying, well, I'm not getting any benefit for this. But if you do need it, when things go wrong, it can be really powerful. So I put in the 4 questions here. It says, what insurance do you currently have? What insurance do you actually need? Do you have the right cover? And are you paying the right price? So if we just pick a couple of examples for each one. So what insurance do you currently have? Now, I'll be very clear, you may not need insurance at all. So don't panic if you haven't got any, you may not need any. Now, you may be paying some directly already, like holiday insurance, or you may actually have insurance without actually knowing about it. So it could come with your bank account, like some bank accounts give you mobile phone insurance, or companies could smuggle it into your payment for goods. So if you take my sofa again, and my sofa has no idea how famous it is now, they seem to have put in an extra payment for a sofa insurance. I don't know what they think is going to happen to it. But yeah, anyway, but you can take that off. So if you don't need it, stop paying for it, because that's just madness. However, point 2, what insurance do you actually need? If you do need insurance, make sure you're paying for it. So for example, most of you may need contents insurance for your possessions, but then it may already be covered in the place that you're living in. So you just need to check. And the rest depends on your circumstances. So for example, mobile phone insurance. We got this for my wife because she continually drops it down the toilet. So that was an insurance we thought it was worth having. So you just need to balance that up and sort of think about it. The next one, have you got the right cover? So there's lots of different types of insurance, even within a particular subset. So if you've got a car, you'll need car insurance. But do you want to be fully comprehensive, or do you just want to be third party? So you just want to make sure you get the right type. And then finally, are you paying the right price? This comes back to the haggling. Is there a better price to be had somewhere? Can you negotiate the end of your deal? So my boiler insurance keeps jumping up as well. So that was another one we had to go and get refreshed. Now I've shoved in pet insurance right at the end. And this is pertinent because we got 6 small fish for the first time at the weekend, which was quite exciting. So then I looked through this. I said, what insurance do I currently have? I did not have fish insurance. Do I need fish insurance? Probably not. So I think I'm okay. But if it was a cat or a dog, do you have the right cover? Is it just for surgery or is it for anything else? And are you getting a good price? Great. If we go on to the next slide. So the next one, as we approach the end, is preparing for your future. And this is saving for life after work. So this is a focus on retirement. So we'll go straight into poll 6 and see what you're thinking. So this is, what age are you planning to retire? I think this is a brilliant question. So is it under 50? Is it 50 to 59, 60 to 69, over 70? Never. Now that might be because you don't think you'll get the chance, or because you love your job so much you never want to retire, or no idea. This could be the first time you've ever thought about it. So it'll be interesting to see where you come up with this one. Now, why that's coming up, I would say, some of you might be thinking, well, my retirement could be up to 50 years away. So why on earth are we talking about pensions and retirement? But we'll come to that when we get the results of the poll. Always a bit more of a split this time. So a lot of people are, well, the majority punting for no idea. So a third of you got no idea. So I'm glad we're stepping outside the box to make you think. And then nearly a quarter have gone for 60 to 69. So that's the sort of normal age that most people sort of punt for. But I would be quite happy to retire now. But okay, so if we go on to the next slide then, which is retirement and pensions. And as I was saying, I don't want to get anyone too excited here because I appreciate it's a long way off. But there's good news and there's bad news. The bad news is you might have to work 50 years until you retire. So my advice to you would be try and pick a job you love, because you might be doing it for a long time. The good news is you have a whole 50 years to prepare for your retirement, but you will need to prepare at some point. Whether it's today, not sure. However, you certainly don't need to worry about it today. Let's get that out there right now. But I wanted to mention it to you for when you start working after university. Don't ignore it as you get older. It can be so important. And just in case you don't know what a pensions is, they're sort of tax efficient ways to put money aside for later in life, almost like a sort of big pot of savings, if you like. So there's some really interesting points on there. I won't go through them all now, but you wouldn't believe the amount of people over 45 who come to me and say, the biggest regret financially I've got is ignoring their pension. So I say, maybe when you start work and you get a contract for wherever you're going to work and it says, what would you like to do with your pension? Don't ignore it. Read the details and get interested in it. But that's one for the future. Great. If we go to the next slide, please. So as we're sort of coming to the end now, so as I say, in summary, financial wellbeing is a really big topic. And saying we've touched on lots of different things today, including our 5 coloured topics on the slide there. And hopefully you found a lot of it very useful and you've been able to pick up specific things that you can take forward. One thing we haven't covered, which I thought was worth calling out, is different ways of looking at earning money. So obviously we've talked about sort of controlling the money you have. How can you sort of add to that? So this might be something you'd like to try, or maybe something you're already trying. I put some ideas up on this slide that you could perhaps research. You could research different things that interest you. Obviously, the internet will give you loads of exciting options. One good way I found doing it when I was at university was trying fun things with your friends, and either as a competition or working together. You could be the next Facebook. I'll leave that with you. But what I would say is everyone's got sort of skills and things to offer that people will pay for, whether it be online courses or tutoring or just selling some of your old stuff. So maybe something to think about, just to look at the other side of it. So if we move to the next question, top 5 tips, right? So this is a key point. And if you're coming to me and if one of the questions is, what are your top 5 tips? These will be them here. So firstly, the best advice I can give you is just to get interested in the topic. And attending sessions like this is a brilliant way to sort of get you kicked off and get you chatting with your friends and get you thinking about it. So get involved now in your personal finances and growth. It can be exciting, it can be interesting, it can be rewarding, but certainly just take little steps and just keep learning. While you're at university, there's no better time to do it. The second one I'd say is make a budget. Now we've covered this. Remember the 3 columns on a page. 1 for your money coming in, 2 for your money going out, and 3 for money that probably shouldn't. And then once you've done that, really have a look at it and think, how can I be smarter here? The third one is start saving when you're able. Now, I appreciate that can be extremely difficult at certain times in your life, and that's absolutely fine. But just little bits here and there will soon add up. And if you can get into a habit, even better, and start with building that rainy day fund, just to give you a bit of confidence. The fourth one is look out for the deals and get the most value for your money. So whether that be discount cards with your student cards, haggling, cutting out waste, it's your money. Don't throw it away. Try and get the best you can out of it. And then fifthly, and just as importantly, if you need any help, don't panic, and reach out through the many avenues and mediums of support that are out there. So if you're asking me, so the best thing you can do right now is, maybe after this call, is read through your notes, and then potentially these slides after the event, and then think about some personal positive actions that you can take that you're interested in. So that might be build a budget, that might be learn about pensions, that might be looking at savings accounts. There's a variety of different things, but I say if you're moving forwards, you're making progress. And then the last slide, you may be pleased to hear. So the Q&A and feedback. So we say we're going to start taking questions, or we already have been. So keep them coming in, and we'll see how many we can get through. We're going to have a bit of a panel of Q&A. So there's be people from sort of different walks of life and different experiences that we'll be able to draw on. But all I wanted to say was absolutely great to speak to you today. I say I really wish you well with your university studies and your working life afterwards. I say I may even see you as a work colleague in NatWest one day. Let's hopefully get some good questions in. So I'll hand over to the Q&A panel now and to say thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Douglas. Really, I don't know how you it was such an interesting topic and loads of information to digest there and take in. And I think even now, possibly a wee bit older than other people on the call, and I'm saving for my first house, and there's so many things in there that I just didn't know. And yeah, really brilliant practical tips to kind of get us started. So The good news is we do have some questions coming through, which is fab. And I should probably say I'm also from NatWest Group, but I work in a completely different area to Douglas, and I work in early careers, hence the fact that I don't know very much about financial wellbeing. So if we do happen to have anybody on the call who is interested, looking at some of our early careers opportunities, etc., then you can ask me those types of questions. And we'll also be running another employability event all about that. So I'll probably direct you to that too. But right, let's get going. I think first question, and it is to you, Douglas, if that's okay. Couple of comments coming through about cryptocurrency, and then also kind of a little bit wondering about Bitcoin. So that was from Nayab and Javier. So what are your thoughts on investing in crypto and Bitcoin? Big question. Oh, you're still on mute, I think, Douglas.
Apologies. Yes, no, a very interesting question. Thank you for that. So Bitcoin and say all the other cryptocurrencies are quite a new, in the last couple of years, exciting things that people are looking into. So some people see cryptocurrencies as investing, and some see it as pure gambling. What I would say is it's an extremely volatile product. Now people have made some money on it, and some people have lost a lot of money on it. Now, if you remember what we said about investments, they can go up and down, and that you shouldn't invest what you can't afford to lose. So I would say it's unlikely you probably want to look at this until you've got like a rainy day fund, you've got some savings, and you've tried to reduce your debt first. If you've done all of this, be aware that many experts struggle to understand it. So I would say extreme care is required. Now, normally I'd say you could seek professional advice, but I'm not sure even they could help you with this one either. So personally, I haven't gone anywhere near it, but I know people that have. But to say I would just be very careful and don't create problems for yourself, I think would be my answer.
Good answer. Very sensible. Thanks, Douglas. Maybe a bit of a build on that. Say we take out the crypto kind of side of things. What about general investments, if there is such a thing, and investing in funds? I think there was a bit of chat on the conversation earlier with Toyuib, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, and Jemima investing in it, and apparently Hargreaves Lansdowne have some interesting guides. But what would you suggest in terms of kind of investment in general? Are there any good books, any resources that you'd recommend?
Yeah, another good question. I would still hark back to my first answer of, if you're looking at investing, you've hopefully got yourself on a stable financial footing first, and that the investing is the sort of the cherry on the cake at the top. Investing is normally seen as a sort of a long-term option that you put away for a prolonged period and not necessarily for short-term profit. There are loads of good ways you can do that. As you were saying, I think the best way to do that is to research that thoroughly and get really interested in it. So I'm quite interested in shares and investments, but you really need to know what you're talking about before you spend your hard money on it. Hargreaves Lansdowne is the number one provider for funds and individual shares. They're not always the cheapest, but they do have a very good quality of service, and there's some great materials on there. So if you're interested in it, certainly sort of start looking into it. I would say there are different investment products that carry different types of risk. So you can get more generalist funds that sort of spread and diversify your risk, or you can go for individual companies that are a lot more risky because you're dependent on that one company. But I would say is I wouldn't get involved in it too heavily until you know what you're doing. Like anything, I suppose. I hope that answered the question.
I hope it does. Thank you. We've ended up lots of questions focused at you, which is good. People are engaging. One's from Tara and Toyub again. I guess on that point of how do you actually stick to a budget? I know we talked about setting it, but any, I guess, practical tips or strategies to save? Just maybe, I guess, any other hints or tips? Maybe something that's worked for you in the past?
Yeah, well, say the first thing is having it in the first place, and then doing something with it. It's one thing to get that budget and then start acting on it. So what I do is I have a sort of direct debit that comes out of my account whenever I get money in, so I don't actually see it, which I think I mentioned probably in the talk. So it's kind of doing it straight away. But I say if you take it seriously and you keep revisiting it, this isn't something you should be doing once a year. If you keep going back to it, you'll learn, and you'll make mistakes. But the best way to learn is to go through and experience it yourself.
Brilliant, thank you. Another one, I guess, thinking about if someone was looking to open a new bank account, particularly a savings account. We've had a question from Stella. What are some of the things that you maybe need to have a think about when you are looking to open a new account?
Yeah, so most bank accounts have savings accounts. I suppose, as you were saying, you need to think about what you need that account for. So it could be a current account, a savings account. A number of banks do sort of safe or relatively safe diversified investments as well that you could piggyback off the back of with some professional support. You almost also might want to think about what services you'll need. So will you need an overdraft? Will you need a loan? Some accounts cost money, so just be wary of that. There's a lot of free accounts still in this country. We're quite unique in that respect. Many countries don't have free accounts, but we do. But if you're willing to pay money, you can get things like a phone insurance included, so you can look out for that. Certainly as a student, the key thing I'd be looking out for is the offers on joining. That was a big thing when I was a student. I got a 5-year rail card, which I was delighted with, and served me very well. I think the NatWest one at the moment, and they change all the time, so always keep checking them. I think it's something like a £50 cash startup and start and a 4-year taste card. So, and I think you can get up to a £2,000 overdraft after a qualifying period. So there's lots of great things to say NatWest, but other banks do it as well. The key question I would say is research and compare the different types. Do you want an online bank? Do you want a good online service? Do you want other offerings? Do you need to go into a branch? So there's lots of different things you can think about. But so get one that works for you. I think you can have more than one account. I think those rules change. Sometimes they say you can only have one. But yeah, so there's options there. I say just find what works for you. I think it's the answer.
Fab. A question is coming from Jemima. Maybe I missed it. She's asked, what's a taste card? Is that something that you mentioned, or have I?
It's a very good question, and what I would need to confirm, but I'm pretty sure it's you can use it. It's a sort of a discount card that you can use in different places. So a bit like a student discount card. Whether you can use a student discount card and a taste card, I'm not sure. But as I say, these change all the time, so it might have changed by the time I finish this. But as I say, there's usually comparison sites that will give you, if you don't get on a train, there's no point getting a train pass kind of thing, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. I guess another question I'm thinking about. We talked about pensions, and I know you touched upon it at the end. Say you're doing something like me at the moment, you're trying to save for your first property, you're saving for rent. It can be a little bit difficult, I guess, to start thinking about pensions at this age when you are still kind of, I guess, at the start of your career or kind of a student. Is it really important to start thinking about your pension early, or can you just kind of put it off until you actually are earning a decent amount of money?
So yeah, no, I don't know if this is a question for you specifically or for everyone else, but yeah, I think you have to think about all these sort of things as you go through life, and that's why it's important to sort of look at everything. So you may be saving for investments, you may be saving for a house, you may be saving for a car. Your pension will keep going hopefully for 50 years. I suppose that and I very clearly said please don't worry about pensions right now. It's just the feedback I get is always the thing that people regret later on in life, and pensions are quite sort of dependent on the legislation from what the government is saying. So I think the government are now saying you've got to save 8%, because they're aware that everyone else is ignoring their pensions as well. So the government are now, in certain circumstances, forcing you to pay 8%, which I don't think is a bad thing. So companies will now build that into their package. So you will get that. All I'd say is, don't turn that off. And if you can increase it past 8%, fantastic. So people are doing things to make sure you're thinking of pensions. But just have it in the back of your mind. I just don't want anyone to get to 50 and go, oh, I haven't done anything. But I say when you start your job, they will offer pensions, and there are different types of pensions and different rates. So just read what you're getting and make sure you're comfortable with it. But but don't let that stop you from saving for your flat or your house as well.
Mm-hmm. And we've had a good follow-up question there from Javier, so thank you, Javier, who said, is it better to have a self-invested pension or a workplace pension? So I don't know if you can give any more detail on perhaps different types of pensions there.
Yeah, so a SIP is one that you sort of invest yourself. Now you can see that the advantages and disadvantages of that. The advantages is you're in control of that and you can do the things you want. The more complicated element is that you're in control of it. So unless you know what you're doing, and I've got a lot of friends who do know what they're doing and they're more than happy to do their own. Unless you're kind of a semi-expert in the field, you probably want one that's probably already set up, so you're getting that full diversification, that spread across different things. When you start working, your company will have its own specific one, and you'll probably pay into that in most instances. You may be able to opt out on occasions, but predominantly it'll be done for you. You may get a chance to pick funds, so you might be able to say, I want to pick some risky funds because I've got a long time until I retire, and I'm going to go and pick something with a bigger option of growth. You may say, actually, I don't like risk. I want to be safe, and you can pick safer products. So both are good. You can have a SIP and your company one as well. You just have to make sure you're abiding by the limits and the rules for each. But yeah, certainly worth doing. If you've got a pension of any description, it's certainly worth it.
I'm nodding and couldn't come off mute. Fab. Lots of pension questions, which is good. So it does seem that people are thinking about it. And you're off the hook for a second, Douglas, because I think I've got a question come through for me from NIAB. So thank you very much. And it was around generally, I guess, how to kind of get in with a big graduate employer. And I think mentioning as well that quite a few experiences and internships have been cancelled due to COVID, which is such a shame. And yes, a number of companies, I guess, did cancel, and it can be disappointing because you're then missing out on that experience on your CV in a kind of pivotal year. I would start by saying we are doing a full employability workshop with myself, and we're doing that again in partnership with John Smith Group. So that is on the 20th of October. So I would say, first and foremost, come along to that. We'd love to see you there, and we'll be going into way more depth. My top tip for now, just so that you have one takeaway at least, is to tailor your application. Now, you're probably sitting thinking, right, well, I've got 20 companies that I want to apply for, and I would recommend that you do apply to multiple places. And it can be really difficult doing that alongside your studies as well, and managing all these applications and thinking, what do I prioritize? I prioritize getting my degree, which I need to get into a company. So it's difficult. But maybe you approach it in a kind of organized fashion. Maybe we can use some of Douglas's learnings here. Could you set up an Excel table? Keep only 10 applications live, say, at any point, make notes on them, check on where you are at with the process. And if you say it's normal, if you get rejected by one of them, take that one out the pot, add another one, and kind of keep on going like that, so that you're not overwhelmed and you can still make really tailored applications specifically to that company and specifically to that role. Because I think that's probably the number one thing that employers want to see, that they want to think that you're the number one choice and that you've really put effort into that application and you're really motivated to join them. So come along to the session, keep it, I guess, really focused on that company. And stay organized as well. Keep on track of your applications would be my top tips there. Okay, I'm going to go to a question now from Rose, which has come through in our Q&A, which is a really good one. Any investment opportunities for international students? Now, this is definitely not a question for me, so I will hand back over to Douglas. So anything specifically for international students?
As in students from that have come into the UK?
I'm not sure, actually. I guess investment opportunities, yes, I would say so. Let's go with that. And Rose, if that's not the question that you that you wanted, please jot down in the Q&A. But let's take it as, yes, students that have travelled and are now based in the UK who are international.
Well, the good news about investing is that it's completely worldwide now. So it doesn't really matter where you sort of start and where you end up. You have access to pretty much anything. You can buy property in most countries. Obviously, there's some exceptions. You can buy shares from companies across the across the world. And obviously, there's some riskier countries than others. But yeah, no, to say that the world's your oyster. It's never been a greater time to invest in certain things. I don't think you'd be disadvantaged by coming into the UK. You may choose, if you've got a specialist knowledge in your home country, that you may wish to look things there. But certainly don't let that stop you from looking at opportunities elsewhere. Hopefully that answers the question. But having to take clarity if necessary.
Thanks, Douglas. And yeah, hopefully, Rose, that did answer your question there. Looks like obviously no disadvantage, and maybe even gives you other areas of specialist knowledge as well in different countries too, which is brilliant. Okay, we've got 4 minutes left. Oh, Rose said it did answer her question, so that's good. We've got just a quick follow-up from Kwame, which was the names of the investment companies that you mentioned earlier, Douglas. I think it was that Hargreaves Lansdowne, is that right? Any other companies in terms of investments that you'd recommend people jot down the names of?
Oh, there's loads, and I don't want to get into trouble for naming some companies over others. There are some really good ones, but say they all have advantages and disadvantages. As say, some are really keen on price, some are really keen on sort of customer service, some are really keen on the product offering and the breadth that they have. But there's lots out of there. There's sort of Train Direct, there's Hargreaves Lansdowne, there's Vanguard. There's, I think if you just type in investment companies, then a lot will pop up, and then I'm being fair to all of them. But yeah, what I would do is keep in mind the small print, because some charge big upfront fees but small ongoing costs. Some charge small upfront fees but bigger ongoing costs. So if you're doing lots of trading, you may want a different account from if you're just doing a small bit of trading. But I would emphasize we're talking about a world that we're trying to get to. So I'm delighted that you all think you're there already. I would keep pushing you back to making sure you've got your rainy day fund sorted, your savings, and reducing your debt. But I say, if you have the option to look elsewhere, get involved. It's really exciting. I can spend hours looking at it, looking at all the different accounts, but I don't get out much.
Great. And I think we've got time for one more question. So I'm going to go with the one that came through first, which was from Nayab, and really excitingly mentioning that they are thinking of starting a new business. Are they able to get a business account as a student?
I say that would depend on the organisation. I think it's certainly worth shopping around. Their banks are extremely keen to get involved with entrepreneurs and help businesses thrive. So on paper, they should be very up for that. I suppose it'll just depend on they'll have set criteria, and again that'll vary for the bank. It might be collateral experience, but there's lots of organisations that can help. So in say Scotland, for example, because that's my example, they've got a sort of business gateway that can help set up companies like this. I don't know whether it extends into England, maybe it does in Wales and Ireland, but yeah, certainly say Google, setting up business advice. They'll certainly be keen to chat to you. And again, it depends, what you're looking for. If it's just a cashing account, it might be fine. If you're looking for a couple of million to loan to set you up, that that might be harder. But yeah, what I would say is to say just do that research and find what's appropriate to you.
Brilliant. And I'm guessing too, we've had one final question, which I'm going to sneak in, which was from Javier, and it was just around that investment trading account. And can he open one with NatWest Group? So I'm guessing similar advice there, that it will depend on situation, do your research and try and find the right account for you. Would you say so?
Yes. And NatWest more do sort of bulk sort of funds, where you can pick your risk profile and they'll diversify it for you, as opposed to sort of daily trading specifically for individuals. But I say there's lots of different options out there, as you say. You just find what's appropriate to you. And I'm just aware that you might not come back to me because it's 3 o'clock. I just wanted to tell everyone thank you so much for getting involved. What I would say is keep learning, keep looking at it, keep getting involved. You've got some brilliant questions there. Go out and learn lots of exciting things. But I say thank you very much for coming along. It's been fantastic.
No, and thank you very much, Douglas. And yeah, I think we'll end it there with the Q&A. I think actually we managed to get through all of the questions, which was brilliant. And I said that we would grill you, and I think we gave you a good grilling there with lots of different questions. So thank you very much, everybody. Conscious of time, I will hand back to Jenny from John Smith Group just to close the session today.
Yeah, there were some really good questions there. So thank you very much for taking part in that. And I think we put you through your paces, Douglas. So that was good. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm going to just put a link in our chat, which is the event page on our website. So we had some fast events as well, all around sort of wellbeing, study skills and employability, and we have events coming up as well. So if you check on that page, there'll be a lot of information on there for you. And we'll be sending out a link to the video on YouTube, so you can watch it again and we'll be sending out the slides as well, so you can read all of that really useful information in detail. So thank you very much, everyone. And we might see you again in a couple of weeks for the next NatWest event, which is how to get a job. So hopefully see you there. Thank you and goodbye.